What is the relationship between God, authority, and human freedom? In God and the State, Mikhail Bakunin argues that belief in divine authority and submission to the state are the two greatest obstacles to human liberation. His message is direct. As long as humanity bows to higher powers, whether in heaven or on earth, it can never truly be free. Bakunin begins with a radical proposition. If God truly exists as an all-powerful, all-knowing being, then human freedom is impossible. Why? Because such a God would demand obedience, and obedience by nature denies independence. If God is everything, then man is nothing. This is the core contradiction Bakunin exposes. Religion teaches that humans must submit to divine will, to sacred law, to authority beyond question, but in doing so, it reduces human beings to servants. Thought, reason, and will become secondary to faith. Bakunin flips the traditional moral view on its head. He claims that the story of humanity's fall, the rebellion against God, is actually the beginning of human dignity. When humans disobey divine authority, they assert their own consciousness and freedom. In other words, progress begins with rebellion. From this perspective, religion is not a source of enlightenment, but a system of control. It teaches people to distrust their own reason and accept suffering as part of a divine plan. It promises rewards in an afterlife distracting from injustice in the present. Bakunin argues that this is not accidental. Religion, he says, has always been used as a tool by ruling classes to maintain power. By convincing people that authority is sacred, it discourages resistance. Kings rule by divine right. Law become unquestionable. Inequality is justified as part of God's will. But Bakunin does not stop at religion. He extends his critique to the state. The state, like religion, is built on the principle of authority. It demands obedience to laws, institutions, and leaders. It claims to be acting in the name of order, security, and common good, but in reality, Bakunin argues, it exists to preserve the power of a few over the many. Even democratic states, he warns, are not truly free. While they may allow voting and representation, they still concentrate power in the hands of a governing class. The people are told they are sovereign, but in practice they are ruled. For Bakunin, any system that places authority above the individual, whether religious or political, is fundamentally oppressive. So, what is the alternative? Bakunin proposes a society based on absolute freedom and equality, not chaos as critics might assume, but a voluntary order built from the bottom up. Individuals would organize themselves freely, forming communities and associations without coercion. Instead of laws imposed from above, there would be a mutual agreement. Instead of hierarchy, there would be cooperation. He believed that humans are naturally social beings. When freed from oppressive systems, they are capable of organizing their lives rationally and ethically. Morality, in this view, does not come from God or the state, but from human solidarity. Bakunin places great faith in science and reason, but not as new forms of authority. He warns that even science can become oppressive if it turns into a rigid system controlled by elites. Knowledge should guide humanity, not dominate it. This leads to one of the most important distinctions, the difference between authority based on expertise and authority based on power. Bakunin accepts that we may rely on experts, for example, a doctor or an engineer, because of their knowledge, but this is voluntary and temporary. It does not give them the right to rule over others. True freedom, he insists, means rejecting all forms of imposed authority. Bakunin's vision is uncompromising. He does not call for reform, but for complete transformation. Religion must be abandoned. The state must be dismantled. Only then can humanity achieve genuine freedom. He acknowledges that this is a difficult path. Authority is deeply ingrained in human society. People are often taught from birth to obey, to conform, to accept hierarchy as natural. But Bakunin believes that this conditioning can be overcome. Education, he argues, should not indoctrinate but liberate. It should teach individuals to think critically, to question authority, and to develop their own understanding of the world. Freedom is not given, it is taken, and it requires courage. Bakunin's ideas are often controversial. Critics argue that without authority, society would descend into disorder. They question whether humans can truly organize themselves without coercion. But Bakunin counters that what we call order under the state has often just enforced inequality. True order, he says, can only arise from freedom. He envisions a world where individuals are not subjects but participants, where power is not centralized but distributed, where human potential is not suppressed but unleashed. At its heart, God and the state is a call to rethink the foundations of society. It asks us to question beliefs we often take for granted, that authority is necessary, that obedience is virtuous, that power must be centralized. Bakunin challenges us to imagine something different, a world without masters, a world without chains, a world where humanity stands on its own, guided not by fear of punishment or hope of reward, but by reason, solidarity, and the desire for freedom. Whether one agrees with him or not, his message remains powerful. As long as people believe that they must submit to God, to the state, to any higher authority, they limit their own freedom. And as long as authority remains unquestioned, true liberation remains out of reach. Bakunin leaves us with a stark choice: submission or freedom, faith or reason, authority or autonomy. The future, he suggests, depends on which we choose.